Right, we are going to go to a short tutorial how to create a component in Autodesk Fusion 360. So the component that we are going to create is something really useful, which is basically a tensile specimen. This tensile specimen, in this case, comes from the ASTM standard E8. And we are going to follow this geometry that is recommended by the ASTM standard. So you can see that it has a profile and they have some recommended measurements that we are going to try to draw in the CAD software. So we are going to be checking this screen for different measurements. So first, going to Fusion. So this is basically when you open the screen, that's what you're going to see. The first thing that we're going to do is most likely we are going to click here in this option. And we are going to, in data, we are going to go to home. And basically, we can create a new project. In this case, you can create a new project. And you can name it as you want. So, for example, this new project, I'm going to name it, rename some tensile. Okay, we are going to create some tensile specimens. Now, double click, and I can also create a new folder here if I want. So, for example, ASTM E8. Oh, sorry. ASTM E8. Double click, and now I can save my whatever geometry I'm doing in that project. So I'm going to tensile ASTM E8, and I'm going to name it like the flat pin specimen. So that's the name of the file that I'm going to create. So basically, I'll save that. So notice that saves version 01, V1. So basically, the first version. When you save it again, it's going to create a version 2. So you have a history of the different versions that you save. Now, for starting to create the geometry, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come to you see this structure here, ladder structure. I'm going to go right click and create a new component, which basically is a new part. And in this case, I'm going to create that. I'm going to call it as well like the flat pin specimen. And this component is basically going to show another series of options here. It has their own origin and it has different operations that I'm going to create. So that's the component I can create different components, for example, for an assembly. And in this case, it's just one component that we are going to create. First thing that we need to do is a sketch. So we are going to click in the sketch and we can select one of planes. So as you see, basically, according with these coordinates, we can select the XY, ZX, or XZ axis. The plane, in this case, I'm going to take the XY plane, which is the bottom one. So I'm selecting that. I go to the front. Now it's a different view with different options. So now I'm going to create the profile. So I can just go and create the profile with the right geometry first, but sometimes it's easier just sketch. And after that, have your final design. You're creating some measurements and some constraints. So let's sketch this one. Now, you also can create the whole thing in once, or you can also, because this is a symmetric part, you can also create a quarter of the part. And after that, just create like a mirror and create the other half of it, and after that, the other half, so you have the full size. So, whatever you consider easy, sometimes for me it's easier to work like with symmetries. So I'm just gonna create the first half, this first half here. So let's draft it. So I'm gonna select a line, and I'm gonna use the horizontal line as a reference. So I'm gonna come, it's gonna look something like this, and it doesn't need to have any measurements. We guide you here what to do, and I'm gonna close it. So as you notice there, I basically created a basic geometry, and there are some constraints. So this is right angles, stuff like that. So that's the basic geometry that I wanted to create. Now, I wanted to create this curvature value here. So basically what I do is I select the circle profile, and I have different options to create circles. Circles by diameter, click in the center, circles by tangent, so I can select whatever I want. What I want to create is a circle by tangent. And basically what I want to do is tangent. So you see basically it's giving you different options. And when you click it, is in the small box, is telling you some kind of notes what to do. So it says selects the first tangent of the circle. So it's going to be this one. And after that, I'm going to take this as a second tangent. So you can create your circle like that way. Let's give it like that. Okay. So I have this profile. Now you see that the component is basically extrapolated to all of this area. I don't want to count that like the geometry. So I can just come to create again or modify, and for example, trim. And I'm gonna trim this surface and this one. So now it's looking better. Now I need to just trim this part, right? And it'll be mostly done. So I can trim this part, but what I wanna do better is just separate the regions. So I'm gonna come and break. So I'm gonna select this one, and as you notice, it break the circles in two regions, this one and this one, the ones that is connected with the other geometry. And I'm gonna say that when I select this part, I'm gonna say that this part, it's a construction line instead of a drawing line. So if I can make a construction line, you see that immediately turns dash line and just leave the semicircle there. So basically it's gonna be a construction line, it's just giving me the radius there. So at this point, basically we have the geometry, everything looks fine. So now for example, if I'm okay with that, actually I can finish my sketch. And when I finish my sketch, I can rotate my sample here with the orbit. And you're going to notice that we have a 3D or a 3D view of our sketch in the X and Y plane. Also, I can click in different faces, so I can see the different faces. And I can click the corner, for example, for see ISO view. So you'll have a general view of the sketch that we did. Okay. Now, if you go to the different operations in our component, we go to a sketch and we have our sketch that we created. We can name here, for example, rename and call it like profile file of the specimen. So some name. And I can also right click and edit sketch. So I can come and edit a little bit. Now let's give it some measurements. So first, for example, we need to go to the standard. We know that the C is going to be, if we say the C is, it says the standard C is approximately 50 millimeters. So we are in millimeters here. So we have 50 millimeters. So we selected the dimension, sketch dimension tool and selected this line. And we saw that this is 80, for example. So according to the standard, it should be 50. So let's select, 50, the total. But we are just capturing half of this. So it's 50 divided by 2, 25. In the case, we also can select operations. For example, 50 divided by 2, and immediately gets 25. Now, it gives me some funky things here because obviously we need to redesign everything. But we'll work on that. Now, W, which is this area here. W, as you see here, is the width. It's going to be 12.5. And again, it's 12.5 divided by 2, right? So it says not 1. So basically, it says that it could be tapered a little bit. We are not going to do that this time. So we are going to select again the sketch dimension, select this one. And it's going to be 12.5 divided by 2, right? So the sketch is going there. Now, the radius of curvature. So if this R, so if you check this R, radius of fillet, it's 13, but it's minimum. So minimum should be 15. And there is a note that it could be a larger radius for bigger samples. So let's give it, we can do 13, let's do it 12, for example. So I can select the circle. And right now, the radius is really large, right? So let's say it's going to be 50. So now it's giving me like more consistent. So remember that the radius should be minimum 30, but I could make it bigger, and I can click again and it's set for 20. So they automatically change. Let's leave it 50. Okay, so let's keep updating this system and I can just move my design. Now, B, the B measurement is the length of the grid section. It's a minimum 50, it says here. Let's do it. This one, right? 100. Let's do it 50 as recommended. Okay. Now, you see the distance between the end of the fillet radius and the whole parallel section is 8, which in this case, A, the recommended distance, is 57. It's called length of the reduced parallel section, 57. In our case, we are just doing half of it. So it's going to be, and again, this is minimum. So we can do 57 or higher. So we can select our tool here. It's going to be 57. Let's do 60 because minimum 57, we can be 60 divided by 2. So much better now. So now we have our quarter of our sample. So we have all of the dimensions that we needed. So let's finish the sketch for now. So you see that's how it looks like right now. This is a 3D view. We can also select the ISO view there. Now, let's say that, okay, we are okay with this drawing. Let's create a solid from that. So right now we just have a profile, 2D. Let's create a 3D. In this case, we need to use this operation called extrude, which basically we can give some dimension. So let's create a extrude, and there is another options that are gonna apply here. We can select the profile, in this case, automatically select because we have some one profile. But if you have different profiles, you can select and click it, whatever you need. You can also select the direction, or you can do it one side or two sides or symmetric. In this case, let's give it a distance. For example, I'm gonna go and you can move manually. And you can select, for example, there, and let's say 5 millimeters. So I create a solid, and as you see, created a body, and this body, it has 5 millimeters. Now, another thing, notice that at the bottom of the screen, there is a sequence of events that happen. First, we created the profile, and after that, we have the extrusion. We can come to the extrusion, right-click, and edit the feature. So we can edit, for example, from 5 to 20 millimeters. So it makes more, thicker. And again, we can select the extrusion, edit profile. Let's leave it 5 because usually those samples are thin. So we have, a nice quarter row sample. But we want to design the whole thing. So, we can create a mirror here. So we can do it in different ways. There are some ways to do it here in the 3D view. But let's go to the profile. So I'm going to select profile, and edit sketch. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mirror of this profile according to this axis. So you see here, there is a mirror option, and it's going to guide you what to do. So it says select objects. So I'm going to select all of these objects. And in this case, it's selecting all of these conditions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect the x-axis because that's our symmetry. So notice that it's all of the elements, but not the x-axis. And as a mirror line, I'm going to select that axis. So now it's copying that. Everything looks okay. Okay. So now I have a copy of this profile. It looks more natural. So if I close it right now, I can just, I'm gonna see that my profile, see, I can just activate or deactivate the profile. My profile has the whole thing, but my body is just a quarter of it. So I can just come and probably edit. Let's try to edit feature. So in select, I'm gonna select again, and I'm gonna select the both tabs. You see, so I select the both, and I now okay. So now I created the whole thing there. So everything looks good there. Now, I can do exactly the same for the other half. So I can go again to profile, edit sketch, and I'm going to create a mirror from the other side. So I'm going to select a mirror tool, select all of these elements, but I'm going to undo the y-axis in this case. And those are all of my objects that I want to do. I'm going to copy, and I'm not going to copy the center line either. And the mirror line is going to be this one. So you see, basically, I'm creating the other half. Okay. So I have the mirror. I can center in the screen and finish my sketch. So now my sketch looks complete, but obviously I need to edit the body again. So I'm going to come to my extrusion operation, edit feature, and I'm going to now select all of the bodies. Okay. Nice. So now we have a flat sample. The only thing that is missing basically are the holes that needs to be located around there. So we can create that in the same extrusion, or we can create an extra operation. So let's create an extra operation, but first we need to create a new sketch. So the sketch that I create new could be at the top surface, or could be in the bottom surface, whatever I decided to do. Let's create a sketch at the top surface. So I'm going to select it there, and I'm going to check the top surface that you see there, and click it. So basically, it's going to create at the top surface a sketch. So I'm going to select the circle, and I'm going to take as a reference the x-axis and create a circle. So first, I'm going to constrain or put the dimension of the diameter, which in this case is d. And according to the standard, the recommended d is 13 millimeters. So let's leave it like that, 13. And the e distance, which in this case is approximately 40, it says 40 millimeters, the distance from the edge. And so I can also select the dimension sketch, select this line and the center of my sample, and you see it's 25. So say should be 40, something like that. Okay. Now, I can select and, for example, create a mirror of this circle relative to the center. And basically we have a mirror there. So we have our two operations. So when I finish the sketch, you're going to notice that what I have is my previous body with the sketch number 2, which basically are the holes. So I can just click on that. I select it here, rename, and I'm selecting my holes. By the way, I also can use this operation called holes. That's another way to use it. But in this case, I'm just using the extrusion operation and cut. So I created the holes as a sketch first. Now I'm gonna create a cut. So for that, I also gonna create extrusion. And in the selecting profiles, I'm gonna select the two profiles. Okay. And in this case, as you see here, the operation, it's a new body created. I don't want a new body, I want to cut. Okay. And I can go a distance or I can go all the way through. So I can select that and that distance, and I can say all the way through. So if I rotate it, it's creating a hole all the way through. And I can also place a distance if I want. By the way, to leave this option, I can just click on that, or I can right click and cancel. So we have the previous meeting. So I'm cutting all the way through down. Okay. So now if I rotate, I have my sample with the holes. Now I can go to any part and edit. And that's the nice part about CAD models that you can edit, right? So basically you can select, go to the specimen, edit sketch. And let's see, for example, I consider that this is too short. So I can just double click on that. Instead of 50, I'm going to do it 80. And as you see, everything outdated automatically. Because everything is symmetric, right? So when I close the sketch, everything just updated. Now, for example, consider that, remember that this distance, A, it was suggested to be minimum 57, and we did 60. So let's say, okay, it looks too short for my experiment, so I'm going to make it a little longer. So I can come to my specimens again, edit, select this that I selected by 60, and do 80 divided by 2, because I'm doing just half of it. That's a sketch, and now it looks a little longer. And also, for example, I can edit the hole. So let's edit the sketch. It's 13 millimeters right now. I can do it 20. And you see both holes are going to update. So when I finish the sketch, update the CAD file as well. So everything looks fine. So we have our body. Looks okay. I also can hide, the sketch just to avoid seeing a lot of things in my display. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just save. And when you save it, I'm going to just leave it the same name. You're going to notice that it's going to call it version 2. So basically, the system, when you click here in the documents, and you can go to the different folders, remember that we created tensile, ASTM, we have flat specimen, we have version 2. We also can go to the version 1 that we created first. So there are different versions there collected. So those are basically the easy tutorial to how to do like a body, in this case, a tensile specimen. And from now, we save as a, CAD file for Fusion 360. We can download that file. So we can export as a Fusion 360 file and download it to our folder. Or we can go and download it in another format. For example, for 3D printing machines, usually you use step file. Or you can download it for EIGS, which is also a standard format for moving from one software to other. So for example, I can say, okay, I'm gonna download it like this extension, which is a generic extension with the same name, export. So now it was exported to my computer. And also I can save it as another format. So that was a simple tutorial how to create some samples, some bodies, and some components in Fusion 360.